probe a little bit, because Billy doesn't want to sit out. It's that big game. It's like probe them a little bit, poke at them, ask them the questions about those symptoms. And see if you can elicit a good, honest answer that says, you probably need to sit down for a bit. You're probably out for the day. The other preseason, the pre-concussion kind of thing is doing CAT or SCAT 6s. That's the assessment. An ultimate kind of program will have all their kids run through a SCAT 6 before the season really gets going. It's a baseline. So you know what they look like on a normal day. They get their bell rung. You take another test on them. You compare the two. Like, you're way off your baseline. Okay. So that's important, especially if you're coming to the ER. Say, this is baseline. We just did SCAT 6. ER docs, I don't know that they'll so much do a SCAT 6, but they may look at your papers and say, "Oh, there's a difference. Billy is not quite himself anymore." Resources, Montana High School Association has a huge program for concussions. They're a good opportunity. That was Steiger. I couldn't remember the name. It was Dylan Steiger.
Yeah, that's right.
They have a concussion project. He was a young man that he died from his concussion eventually, right?
Yeah, so that's how the Montana law came to be, was
That's what it
because
was.
of Dylan Steiger, and he got a second impact syndrome, which Todd will talk about, but he passed away.
So they run theirs through Peak Performance in Missoula, and the program, as I understand it, is free. And then we have some pieces here from the CDC, the Heads Up program. So that's a huge, oh my God, the resources on there are crazy.
Yeah.
Lots of handouts for parents, coaches, and students. They're engaging. They're kind of good to get the kids to be aware of what it is that they're facing, right?
They have good little videos too.
They do have
little
little videos.
clips
They're kind
that are
of-
short and
Just something to kind of pay attention to, bringing in. So now the concussion, right? So William takes a hit, and you kind of ask yourself right off the bat, 3 of them kind of bother us, 3 types. So the double hit, takes a hit to the head hits the ground, 1, 2, right? That's a high risk mechanism. Trauma with rotational forces, so I've been hit, spun, and my head is still spinning when it hits the ground. That's a huge high risk. That one will bring us the axonal injury, shearing in the brain, all sorts of, those ones are terrible. Second hits. So William had a hit to the head yesterday. He got hammered again today. That's the second hit. His risk for concussion symptoms was much, much higher with the second hit. So those are kind of the top 3 high risk mechanisms that kind of you want to watch for. Those come up in concussion. Put William on the bench. Let him chill. Check him out. All right. The true concussion. So Mary gets hit. She's down. She's on the ground. She stays there until somebody assesses her. If somebody's bell gets rung hard enough, they're out on the ground. Leave them there. Get out to the field. Check them out. See what's going on with them. Okay. Things for. So I don't know. Training of each coach is a little different. So I don't know what level of assessment you're able to do. Many big games have ambulances on site. They can be called, of course, but those are the kinds of people you don't want to necessarily be moving right away. Okay. Things that are going to the emergency room. Athletes that aren't responding. God help us if they're already posturing, and that's where they kind of do this curving in, their toes are curving in or they're curving out. Those are very, very scary things. That's an ambulance ride without a single doubt, okay? Loss of consciousness for more than a minute or more. That's to the ER. Okay, I don't expect you to sit there with a stopwatch, but because everybody thinks, oh my God, he was down for 6 minutes. Well, how the hell do you know? Right? They're down, he's out for a good amount of time, at least a minute, ER. So these are infamous where you've got the head down. This crowning head hit, this, we call it axle load. The top of the head is hit, drives the spine down. That's an ER visit, but you also got to be cautious of spinal injuries. Okay, immediately, a lot of those terrible ones, they're paralyzed. Their arms don't move. Some part of them doesn't move. They don't look right. Again, it's not somebody you want to necessarily move unless you've been trained to until the ambulance gets there. High impact, high risk magic. Oh, soccer players, head to the goalpost. That's a good one. Okay, that's an ER visit. Cheerleader up on that pyramid hits the ground. That's an ER visit. That one seems pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
Cyclists, collisions, high speed kind of stuff. Let's not mess around too much of that. Skull deformities. I don't expect people to really be out there and just feel a skull. When you feel it, You'll only do it once and you're like, oh, that is just too much. You're like, oh my God, somebody help me now. Yeah. They're gross. They're really gross. It gets ignored. Fluid from the ears. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's yellow, might be some pinkish color. That's likely cerebral spinal fluid. That's a crack between the outside and the inside, open skull fracture. Yeah, you?
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy one.
Yeah.
Seizure, falling in the head, that's an ER visit, okay? Now here comes a little bit of your point, pupils being uneven. One smaller, one bigger. And again, that pre-assessment done before school. Some people have different sized pupils, but you would know that by the pre-assessment done in the early part of the season. Like, Billy's got 2 weird eyeballs. One's blue, one's green. And one's big, one's small, right? So you would know that. So when you look at him, boy, they're opposite now. We're in trouble, right? It's kind of like, okay, we got to fix that. Sudden worsening of symptoms. This usually comes a little bit later. This persistent nausea and vomiting. You know, you get them over to the side, you've kind of checked them out a little bit, and he starts vomiting and headache. That persistent kind of stuff. That's to the ER. Okay.
So can I just add something? So how I was trained was you were allowed to vomit once. You vomit twice, see you later, it's 911.
Right.
Like I tell all my patients, like you can call me on the way to the ER. Like
Right.
do
You
not
tell me
bring
what's
them in
going on
here.
there,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We talked about the neurologic deficit, the weak extremity, like my foot is floppy, it doesn't work well. Worsening of neurologic symptoms, the somnolence. I'm now kind of just tired. Tired is different, right? Somnolence don't quite answer, it's staring off into space. Slurred speech, that's, we don't need anybody with slurred speech still in the field. Difficulty or inability to walk, worsening mental status, those typically are a little bit later, but that's not something we want to wait for either. Okay, so that's 911. Anybody who's not coherent, disequilibrium, they can't walk very well. We'll show you, we won't do a whole lot of it. There's the best test, it's for balance. Are those together, are they side by side, are they able to do this? There's lots of them that help check their balance. Again, pre-assessment is really important because I have crappy balance. I might not pass the test on the field. It's hard
Well,
to
and
say,
it is
right?
amazing how many elite level athletes that are competing with Team USA, and you're like, you can barely bounce with your eyes shut. How are you like winning a gold medal for Team USA?
You do yoga.
Yeah,
I do more yoga.
yeah, exactly. So that's where baseline really comes in.
I don't know how much of the physical assessment you want me to go into. There's a whole lot of it, and it's not
Just
necessarily
give us the cliff note.
the
right?
cliff notes.
Yeah.
So the big ones, just inattentiveness, that 1,000-yard stare. Usually, you know you're in the game, you're paying attention to the game, you know what's going on, but that kind of I'm not with you. The uneven walking, missing the bench when they go to sits, being confused, odd emotions out of a child that usually doesn't have them. Bouts of crying, inappropriate laughing. Those are all mental changes that you're going to have to watch for. So the physical exam should be pretty involved and should be done someplace quiet. So I'm not sure how many coaches are actually trained to do that, but that's something a medical professional on the
I
side
would
should
say
be.
0 coaches. Like the coach's job is to look, okay, you're done. Somebody else, because the coach's job is to coach.
It's true.
You know, they're not designed. Everybody thinks they're an athletic trainer and they can tape Johnny's ankle and they can do this and they can do that. But really, the coach needs to coach.
Sure.
So if they're that worried about a kid, then hopefully an athletic trainer or mom and dad can come over and take Johnny.
Mom would be okay.
Yeah.
Do coaches have any protocols, like to recognize signs and symptoms and like have a protocol, like this is when you pull
It's
it?
a good question to ask the school.
So there's not some kind of standard?
They have to take a test through the Montana High School Association. How well they take the test or care about the test. Lots of coaches are still stuck in well, when I played football,
You have to go
it's
back out there.
fine. Yeah, exactly. So there is definite protocol once an athlete gets pulled. Like they need a medical physician or somebody to clear them back, or else they're not allowed to play that athlete. But so we would hope that so this all started from that Dylan Steigert athlete that passed away, and now each athlete is supposed to take a test also. But we've all taken online tests. You let it play. answer some questions, I passed, it's good, so.
So is that a test we can do like for our own kids at home?
Yeah, and I'd say just get on that CDC website.
Okay.
There's so
Heads
much
up
good
is